3. Selection tools. These are the tools through which you can select an area of an image and further work on it. You have multiple tools that can perform selections, each one of them working in a slightly different way, in order to accommodate for different circumstances. Something to notice is that you can't free transform, delete, paint over, or work on your selection if your layer is a smart object. I'll explain that concept a bit later on, but at this point, you need to know that this applies for every selection tool. The Marquee tool is the first one in our side panel. Hit M to select it, and use it to make rectangular or elliptical selections on your canvas. Get the regular one and drag across the screen. This is your selection. To deselect, hit Ctrl-D or right-click and hit Deselect. If you want a perfect square selection, hold Shift while dragging. Hold Space if you want to move it around. To add to a selection, just hold the Shift key and drag. To subtract, hold the Alt key while dragging. You'll see a plus or a minus symbol on your cursor, depending if you're adding or subtracting. To make a selection from the middle, hold down Alt-Shift while dragging. Same principles apply for the elliptical Marquee tool. After you've made a selection, you can right-click and have multiple options. These are common for all selections, no matter what tool you've used. The first option is very straightforward, and it's Deselect. You might think it's a pretty useless tool, but keep in mind that sometimes you may forget to deselect, and you won't be able to use other tools until you've finished with your selection. For example, if I forgot about this selection and I wanted to move the entire layer, look what happens. Only that area will move. So always make sure you deselect. Of course, using Ctrl-D is faster, and we'll always use that. Inverse is the second option, and it's quite useful when you want to select an object from your image, but it's easier to select everything around it and then reverse the selection. Feather blurs the transition between the selection and the surrounding pixels. When you click it, a box will appear asking you what pixel radius you want selected. Use something dramatic like 50 pixels and then press Ctrl-J. This is the best way to understand it. Sometimes you may work for a very long time and make a detailed selection, and you might not want to lose it. To keep it, press Save Selection from the menu. Choose a name, and then you can forget about it. Then, when you want it back, just go to Select, Load Selection. Choose its name, and you'll have it right back. Layer via Copy and Layer via Cut are widely used. The first one duplicates the region you selected and puts it on a new layer. Use Ctrl-J for the same effect. If you want to remove that area you selected from the current layer and put it on a new one, go to Layer via Cut. Free Transform is another useful option used to change the dimensions of the selected area. Ctrl-T does the same thing. Don't confuse it with Transform Selection. Press it and you'll have these handles appear, and you can use them to adjust the area you selected. As you can see, it doesn't affect the actual pixels, so that's the difference between it and Free Transform. Our last important options are Fill and Stroke. Use them to get exactly what they say. Fill your selection with a color, gradient, pattern, or content aware. Or add a stroke to it. Lasso, Polygonal Lasso, and Magnetic Polygonal Lasso tool. The hotkey is L, and you can use Shift-L to scroll through them. For the lasso, just draw a shape on the current layer you're on, and that will be selected. As you can see, this isn't really built for precision, but in combination with other tools, it can work very well. You can use Shift or Alt to add or subtract to a selection, like always. You have two main options at the top: the feathering, which makes the edges of your selection fade away, and the Refine Edge, which opens up a panel with multiple options, so your selection is spot on. I won't describe all these options since intricate, complex selections aren't widely used in web design. You should play around with each of these options so you can see their effects, but keep in mind we won't do crazy detailed selections like fuzzy hair and things like that. So let's move on. The polygonal lasso works the same way. The main difference is the way you select an area, and that is by clicking and setting points. This works great for straight objects like buildings, and you can really crank up the speed with it. Now, the magnetic polygonal lasso has a bunch more options up top to play with, and the idea behind it is that it sticks to an image you want selected. So, it basically tries to figure out what the area you want selected based on the contrast and other elements. It's not often you'll use it, but it's good to know about it. The Magic Wand and the Quick Selection Tool. The Magic Wand can be accessed by using the W key. It intelligently selects a group of pixels with the same approximate color. In order to use it, just click on the area of pixels you want selected. Use Shift and Alt, as always, to adjust your area of your selection. In order to get a better result, play with the tolerance. A higher tolerance will mean it will select pixels more roughly, while a lower tolerance will make it more precise. The Refine Edge option is also available, as it is for every tool you can make selections with, so be sure to use it. The Quick Selection tool performs the same way. The difference is that you hold your mouse button while you drag. Use the square brackets on your keyboard to adjust the brush size and have the Auto Enhance option checked. Using Alt is a must since most of the time it will select more than you want. One last great trick I want to show you is the Select by Color range. Go to the Select menu, get Color Range, and you'll see a menu pop up. Click on a color you want to select from the canvas. Use the preview in the options to sort through your selection and press OK. What you just did is save a lot of manual work by using this option. You may need to go back and forth a few times in order to get the best settings, but it's an amazing option you should use. That wraps up selections.